All right, you guys, we got a special guest today on Coffee with a Counselor. Hey, my name is Nicholas Wright, licensed professional counselor, and today we have Miss Tracee Jones, and she's going to talk to us about consulting and just her perspective. Just like any other Coffee with a Counselor episode, the purpose of Coffee with a Counselor is to make sure that the client's voice is heard. I feel like a client's voice is the most important voice in the room, and it's important that we learn about different perspectives about life and different outlooks. Everyone's unique, and once we can embrace our uniqueness, then we can continue to grow and talk about our differences and build together. All right, so please welcome Miss Tracee. How you doing, Miss Tracee?
I'm doing fine, Nick. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming. I know you're a busy person. So let's just get into it. Where are you from?
So I am from Richmond, Virginia,
Okay.
and I've
Okay.
been I moved to Charlottesville in 2005 to go to UVA, and then I
Wow.
stayed in the area until about 2011, and then moved away for school again, and then came back here in 2015.
Okay. Um, wow, I didn't realize that you were born in Richmond.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Is that where your family and everyone lives
hmm
or
Yep.
okay.
For the most part, everyone that I grew up, my family that I grew up with, we're from Richmond.
Okay. Big family, small family.
Well, I would say maybe mid-sized family. I feel like as the time has gone on, we've gotten smaller and smaller. Maybe that's common, but
hmm
I would say it seemed a lot bigger when I was little, and
Okay.
then family members that I grew up with have, since died. And so it
Mhm.
feels smaller now, smaller than it used to be. But I would say like maybe mid-sized family.
Any siblings?
I have one twin brother.
Whoa. You kept that a secret. I, I I didn't know you were a twin. It's
Yes,
two
and
of you.
so it's pretty funny because you were asking me earlier about my daughter, and so this is really unique and it was completely not planned. But
Mhm.
my daughter's daughter was also born the same month of January. And
Wow.
so my niece, she's also 9, and she was born on the 10th of January. And then my daughter was born on the 26th.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What's it like growing up with a twin? Like, is it
um,
a lot of trouble
no, I mean,
or a lot of fun? You always
I
got a
mean,
playmate. Like, let's go play. Okay. I don't know.
I mean, from what I can remember, I mean, we definitely had our share of fights, but we've generally been close,
Sure.
but just very different, very different people. Like I more, I mean, he's, I would say, I wouldn't say that he's quiet, but he definitely, if you compare the two of us, people would
hmm
probably say he was more outgoing than I was. I'm
hmm
kind of more to myself, but but a very, very much so a people person. Like most people who know me would describe me as very down to earth people person. But if you compare
Yeah.
the two of us in terms of, let's say, how would I say it? I mean, I guess we just have been different in the sense of, being into different things. It's not like you could say we're twins and we like everything the same. It was
hmm
never like that. And we look different too. Like he's really tall. I mean, I'm not short by any means. I'm about 5'6", so I'm not like short, but he's about 6 feet or a little above that. So you
Okay.
probably wouldn't know that we were twins because of our sizes and everything, and we have some slight feature differences. But
Sure.
so it's been
You're
interesting in
twins.
that we share birthdays and all of those sorts of things, but we're different at the same time.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's neat. I
Yeah.
always wish I had a twin growing up.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people just, I don't know, twinning. It just seems real neat.
Yeah.
Now, now, in terms of just like mental health and counseling, so who introduced you to mental health? Like, is it something you guys talked about as kids? Like, did your parents kind of talk about like, hey, mental health or?
Mhm. So
Mm,
for me, I knew that again, I always wanted to work with people. And so originally, when I was younger, I said that I wanted to be a doctor and I really wanted to be a pediatrician. And so when I got to UVA, that was kind of my mindset that I was going to become a doctor. But I always had business in mind. So I was like, okay, I know I'm going to have my own practice. And so I knew that I wanted to be in business for myself.
sure.
But I knew even then that I wanted to major in psychology because for me, I knew that working with people was my foundation and really understanding
Wow.
people's needs and how I can really work effectively with people. That was always on my heart. And so I knew that I would focus on psychology, but after I started in that pre-med track and it really wasn't, it's like the courses that I was in high school, even though they were advanced studies, is like completely different dynamics when got to UVA, and it was just like
Mhm.
I don't really know that this is for me. And so I also felt like I needed to go into ministry around that same time
Wow,
as
that's
well.
awesome.
And so all of these things started changing for me. And so I thought, well, these are the things I'm really passionate about. So I was really kind of more passionate about being in ministry. And then I knew I
Mm.
wanted to work with people. And then the studies, I think it took me getting one F in a biology course, and I was just like, I'm not going to.
I understand. Gold,
It's like,
Golgi bodies, Golgi bodies, and mitochondria. It could be a little overwhelming.
right. And so, and so it's just like, no, I just need to shift my focus completely. And so I went to just like focusing on psychology. And then I did do a minor in religious studies. And so,
Oh wow.
again, because I felt like that was the area that I really wanted to work in, but I was interested in quite a few different things. So I went into psychology and knew then that I really wanted to focus on which in, academics, it's focused more on abnormal psychology. So really severe
Mhm.
psychosis and, you know, people who are experiencing, different aspects of, whether it's schizophrenia or,
Yeah.
so those were really an area of interest of mine when I was
Mhm.
looking
Severe
into
depression.
psychology.
Hmm.
And so really wasn't any one in particular. I just knew, like I said, when I thought I would do pre-med, I knew I wanted to do psychology. And then when I did, I knew I really wanted to work with that population. So that was just an interest of mine. And then my last year at UVA, I did a program called University Internship Program. I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
it's UIP. And so I got partnered with Honor Own of Charlottesville and worked with, which is really interesting because at the time they had a program that was a partnership between Honor Own and Region 10, and it was what was that called? Community. I'm escaping on it, but it was like a community rehabilitation program, and I don't think
Okay.
Region 10 has it anymore, but it was a partnership between
For
Region 10.
addictions.
No, for individuals who were, maybe coming out of the hospital or had been out of the hospital, but just really needing to get acclimated or just rehabilitated in the
Okay.
community. So it
Okay.
was called community, I forget, but it was around rehabilitating in the community. And so I did
Okay.
that my fourth year. And then I helped them in an administrative, well, I helped, which was the then former executive director of Honor Own. Before
Okay.
that internship started, I helped him as an administrative assistant going into that internship. And
Okay.
then after I graduated, I went back and helped work there for a little bit in
Hmm.
that same role that I was interning in before I
Okay.
went to another position. So I just knew that I wanted to work in mental health, and working in the community was of interest to me. And so it just worked out to do that internship and, kind of
So
get
how do
plugged into the community that way.
so how do we get to consulting? How did you end up
Hmm.
where? I mean, you went from on our own, and you're doing psychology. So how
Yep.
did you get to consulting?
So when I went back to school, I went to University of Washington in Seattle for my master's. And so before that, I started interning with the Women's Initiative, and they are a women's, counseling organization in Charlottesville. And I got to
Okay.
help on a couple of really nice projects that they were doing. They were doing a program called Sister to Sister, which was a um, kind of like a training program for
Hmm.
natural healers in the community to become certified and continue to provide the support that they would have naturally provided in their own community. And so
Yes.
I was helping the former program director at the time co-facilitate that training program, and then I helped the former executive director at the time with what was called a mental health coalition. They were, doing some research gathering on, what was not working systematically in the mental health, system, with services and
Wow.
gaps in services and people not being able to get access to services. So I helped the then former executive director to get connected with community mental health organizations to really find out what were issues that they were seeing with people being able to get access to care. And
Sure.
that, led to an event and just advocacy around, access to care. So that was really, I guess, my first exposure to working with individuals who were licensed in social work. And so I guess that really helped motivate me in going in that direction, as far as going into social work. But when I got into the master's program, again, like I had a huge already foundation in mental health, I really
Mhm.
wanted to expand my work in healthcare. And so I started doing an internship with the VA in Seattle, the Virginia Puget Sound healthcare system. So working with veterans, and that really expanded me, my kind of work with
Wow.
individuals who were experiencing healthcare issues that led to mental health issues. So people who were experiencing, well, I worked with people who were on dialysis and who
Okay.
had, substance use issues,
So
and
we're
they
talking
had to
like OEF, OIF, Iraqi freedom, or Korean War, or just soldiers and
all a huge variety. But I worked with
right
individuals who were a lot older as well, so probably some of those old, earlier wars, and who have
geriatrics.
lost their sight,
Hmm.
lost limbs, and on dialysis, just the
Hmm.
effects of those experiences, but also struggling with, like I said, substance use, depression, kind of
Yeah.
a combination of things. And that was my interest, was really to see the impact of life on mental health issues. And so that was kind of what drew me to focusing on healthcare and really in getting out and getting into the hospital settings. Um, so from there, I knew that, again, I had this mental health foundation, but my heart, like I said, when I thought that I wanted to become pre-med, I knew I wanted to have my own practice. So leadership has always been an area of interest of mine. And for me, like I said, psychology was a foundation. Social work was also like a foundation for me, and really understanding, okay, for psychology, understanding the needs that people have, and
Yes.
social work, understanding how systems work, not just, micro, macro, but meso, but macro systems. How do systems work? Where are the gaps in systems? So that was really a great introduction for me of really looking at systems, and for me wanting to take it to that next step of how can I support from a leadership and organizational perspective. And so that has kind of was kind of the beginning stages for me of coming into consultancy, and I've
Okay.
always been interested in organizational behavior, like I said, leadership,
Yeah. I
and
heard you
wanting
mention
to
that
go in that direction.
systems.
Hmm.
Yeah, I heard you like so as it related to systems, like you when you were there and you were in those spaces, would you see some things off? Like what were some of where you see things that were off and be like, I think we could fix this? Is
Hmm.
that what kind of got you like pay attention to detail, or do you look at the bigger picture, or I mean, like what kind of triggered
Hmm.
you?
Right. So, well, one, from a research perspective, and so
Mhm,
research as well has always been an interest of mine of looking at how can we utilize research to understand where gaps are. And so those, I just, kind of took different aspects of the studies that I did and the things that really stood out to me. And so that system level work, providing research. And so any opportunity that I got as far as research goes, like when I did my practicum, I was working with a organization in um, Everett, Washington at the
mhm,
time, to with they had well, they focused mostly on substance use, counseling around substance use,
mhm,
but because of my interest in mental health, I got to work with a counselor who also did group work, counseling group work on, just aspects of depression as well as substance use and, personality disorders, just a wide variety of topics for their group members who had both mental health and substance use issues. So I
mhm,
used that as an opportunity to evaluate how effective were services because again for me looking at systems and how can we improve where gaps are. So for
yes,
that in that practicum, that gave me an opportunity to develop, satisfaction survey as well as a survey to look at the effectiveness of, those services. Are they what clients were looking for? Does it help to solve, their goals that they set out to accomplish? And
mhm,
so that as well as any opportunities in any systems level work to do research on how effective services were really appealed to me, and that really is connected to what I'm trying to do now and in the consultancy work that I'm doing with healthy
so name your
messages.
yeah, name your company and where
So
can
it's
we find you?
So it's called Healthy Messages, and if you go to www.healthymessages.com, you will be able to learn more about what I'm doing and the types of services that I'm offering. But overall, just like you said, because of my experiences and that, sorry, I remember you asked, of experiences where I noticed that, things were, not
Yeah,
quite right, things were missing, and I feel like because that's the lens that I bring, I mean, in all of the direct practice, you know, kind of positions that I've been in, that's really how I looked at my role. Even though I might have been working with people individually, I was always looking at what was the customer experience like, what
mhm,
services were being offered, how was it consistent with their goals and how did it contribute to outcomes, what may have been, what where are gaps in the services, so things like that were where I could make some of my biggest contributions in the prior roles that I've been in. And so with healthy messages, I
mhm,
seek to provide consulting, to provide education on how can we utilize information to help close those gaps and then take what we learn to enhance the customer experience, to enhance opportunities for other professionals and provide ultimately better services for clients, as well as to tie in supports for professionals specifically in the mental health profession
mm.
in particular.
That's awesome. No, I appreciate that. I think a lot of times people use mental health as a just a lighthearted phrase or just like a catchphrase to get approved for a grant or to just allocate some funding towards the aspect of mental health, but they don't really have policy in place to really help for workplace mental health issues. There's counseling agencies where people are providing counseling and their employees can't even afford to see a counselor. So
Yep.
I think those different gaps that exist, having people like you, I mean, you're a natural, honestly, your ability to pay attention to detail. I think everyone could use some of that. I definitely can think of a few school systems right now that that could use some help with someone identifying the gaps and helping achieve inclusion for everyone. You know,
Right. Right. No, I
um,
appreciate you mentioning that because those gaps really do exist. And, I just did a blog. So one of the other things that I offer on my website is
uh-huh.
writings not just about what's happening, but really the things that I've learned and observed in my experiences. And the recent blog that I posted yesterday was about how do you really measure success. And
Mhm.
as you've probably observed, especially for organizations that receive say Medicaid funding or some type of grant funding, there's always a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of things you always have to do. But the question is in gathering that information, is that really helpful in really determining how effective you're being? And are you really asking the right questions? Are you really, getting at the core of what you're doing and how effective you're being? And is it really helpful or not? And sometimes we aren't asking those questions. We're just
Mhm.
receiving the funding, we're providing the services, we're saying we have these numbers, we are meeting these outcomes, but really are we? And that's the question that I've tried to ask in advocating for change in the positions that I've been in thus far, is how effective are we really being? Are we really
Yes,
asking the right
we
questions?
need that. Yes,
Yeah, and so that's really the
man,
ultimate
I'm here for it.
goal of healthy messages, is to help advocate by asking these types of questions, helping to get
Mhm.
the data that really matters to show the effectiveness and the be in a position to really meet the needs of clients truthfully.
Yeah, I've lived through some Medicaid audits, and I've seen some companies come and go because of a Medicaid audit. But I've also seen some companies that need to go, but I've also seen some great companies fall short because of maybe some documentation here or there. But I think if we could have some assessments, at some of these agencies to kind of qualify some of these folks, besides just filling out the application, where do you have a desire to really work with children? What are your thoughts? I would love to see these companies have more of an accountability in place.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
you know,
And that's
now
really what it's about. And so I wrote about that as well, like
really,
having so I forget what month it was, but I have a blog about responsibility and accountability. And the lens that I bring from that is, again, the true looking at truly what it takes to be effective and within the work that you're doing, but also from a leadership perspective, what does it mean to be responsible and to be accountable? And I
mhm,
think if we were asking some of those questions, not just from a leadership perspective, but from an organizational perspective, we
mhm.
would really, be doing leaps and bounds better. We would do a lot more.
All right, Tracy. Well, I appreciate you. Again, healthymessages.com. All right,
Yes.
and I on Instagram. How do they find you?
It's under healthy messages. So if you search for healthy messages, that's how you'll find me both on Instagram and on LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Hey, so again, if you guys are looking for a consultant that's going to specialize in improving your business, make sure you check out Miss Tracee Jones at Healthy Messages. So, real quick, before we go, I got one more question for you. What's some advice you would give to a kid um, right now who is in school and they're not really sure what they want to do?
Okay, thanks for asking me that, Nick. I would say first and foremost to really um, just be patient with yourself and
Mm,
to
I like
love
that.
yourself and to appreciate what makes you unique, to really think about, what you love and what you're passionate about, because unfortunately, in, this day and age, and especially what we've experienced, going through the school system, we're often encouraged, we're almost encouraged to like certain things or to become good at certain things. And we also tend to compare ourselves with other people that way. And the system is almost created that way. And so you almost have to, really look within yourself and really think about what you love, what makes you unique, what you want to do, and really find opportunities to do those things that you really love, and to just, love yourself and be patient with yourself.
I love it. Hey, there you have it. Miss Tracee Jones, healthymessages.com. I appreciate you showing the Coffee with a Counselor some love and stopping by.
Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, bye.